All right, let's talk about a problem that lives way down in the guts of our software. It's one of those things that causes these catastrophic, totally silent failures. It's all about how we represent data, and it starts with a story that might hit a little too close to home for anyone who's ever been on call.
Okay, so picture this. You're doing a rolling upgrade, which means your new code and your old code are running at the same time. Your shiny new V2 server adds a great feature, and it writes a record to the database with a new field preferred_language. Awesome. But then, an old V1 server, one that has no idea what that field is, grabs that same record. It does something totally harmless, like update the last login time, and writes it back. And poof, just like that, the preferred_language field is gone. It vanished, silently. There's no error, no warning, nothing. The data just evaporated. And here's the kicker. This isn't a bug in V1, and it's not a bug in V2. On their own, both versions of the code are working perfectly fine. The failure happens in the space between them. It's a breakdown in the interaction. And it's all because we didn't think hard enough about how our data is encoded, and, more importantly, how it's going to evolve over time. This isn't a coding mistake, it's a system design failure. Now, to really get why this happens, we've got to peel back a layer and look at the two totally different lives our data leads inside our systems. You could almost call it a tale of two worlds. So this really gets to the heart of the problem. You see, inside your application's memory, your data is this beautiful, complex web of objects and pointers all tuned for fast access by the CPU. But the second you try to send that data over the network or save it to a disk, that whole structure is useless. It has to be translated, squashed down into a flat sequence of bytes. And that translation process, that's what we call encoding or serialization.
And this quote just nails it. A memory address, a pointer, it's only meaningful inside the one process where it was created. To any other process on any other computer, it's just gibberish, a random number. So encoding is how we turn that local, private data into a universal language of bytes that anyone can understand, as long as they have the right dictionary, of course.
So over the years, we've kind of come up with three main families of solutions to this whole translation problem. The way I see it, you've got the convenient but dangerous choice, the universal but kind of flawed choice, and the professional, high-performance choice. So first up, we have the convenience trap. Pretty much every programming language out there has a built-in tool for this. You've got Pickle in Python, Serializable in Java, and it feels like magic, right? It's often just a single line of code to turn your complex objects into bytes. But that convenience, well, it's hiding some really big problems.
Yeah, that convenience comes at a massive cost. For one, you're now locked into a single language. A Java program can't make heads or tails of a Python pickle object. It's often slow and makes your data bloated. It has zero concept of schema evolution, which brings us right back to our data loss nightmare. And maybe worst of all, it can open up massive security holes. And I am not just being theoretical here. We are talking about real-world critical vulnerabilities. Just look at CVE 2015-4852. It was a flaw in a popular Java library that let an attacker run their own code on a server just by sending a specially crafted piece of data. Think about that. When your server decodes or deserializes their data, it could be running their malicious code. So yeah, choosing an encoding format is absolutely a security decision.
Okay, next up is the format we all know, JSON. It's the lingua franca of web APIs. It's just text, it's human readable, and you'd be hard-pressed to find a language that doesn't support it. Seems like the perfect solution, right? Well, not so fast. While JSON is absolutely fantastic for public-facing APIs, that human readability comes with some hidden costs. Numbers can be tricky, you have to use bulky base64 encoding for any binary data, and schemas are technically optional, which means, let's be honest, they're usually just ignored. But the biggest killer at scale is how verbose it is. That field name, username, gets repeated in every single record you send. And this chart just lays it all out. For the exact same piece of data, JSON clocks in at 81 bytes. But that same data encoded with protocol buffers is just 33 bytes, and Avro gets it down to 32. We're talking less than half the size. Now, when you're pushing billions of messages a day, that difference isn't just a small optimization, it's enormous.
So that just begs a really important question, doesn't it? If JSON is so popular, why didn't massive companies like Google, with protocol buffers, or Facebook, with Thrift, bother to invent their own formats? What problem were they solving at their incredible scale that JSON just couldn't handle?
The answer, and this is really the big breakthrough, is a powerful idea. You define a strict schema for your data before you do anything else.
And more than that, it's about separating a field's friendly, human name from its cold, hard, machine-readable identity.
So take a look at the data that actually gets sent over the wire. You know what you don't see? The words username or user ID. Instead, protocol buffers just uses these super compact numeric tags like 1 and 2. The schema acts as the secret decoder ring, telling the machine that tag 1 means username.
And this is the magic trick, right here. That tag is the field's permanent ID. So you can go into your schema file and rename the field from username to, say, user_login name because it's more descriptive. But as long as that tag number 1, stays the same, all your old data written by all your old code is still perfectly valid. It just works.
This one simple idea gives us a recipe for truly safe evolution. The rules are dead simple. You want to add a new field? Great, give it a new tag number that's never been used before. Want to rename a field? Go for it, totally safe. But the golden rule, the one you absolutely cannot break, is you never ever change a field's tag number and you never reuse a tag from an old deleted field. Stick to that and you can do rolling upgrades all day long without that constant fear of silent data corruption.
Okay, so that's the theory. How do we actually put this into practice and make the right call for our projects? Let's build a little decision framework.
All right, here it is, the architect's cheat sheet. Just look at the rename field row. With JSON, that's a breaking change. You're in a world of hurt. But for protobuf, it's a green checkmark, perfectly safe. Avro is just as smart about it. This table makes it crystal clear. Schema-driven formats have safety guarantees baked right in, things that are at best just a gentleman's agreement with JSON, and at worst, totally impossible.
So let's boil it all down to a super simple guide. Are you building a public REST API for the whole world to use? You should probably stick with JSON. Its main advantage is that everyone understands it. But for high-speed, high-performance communication between your internal microservices, the speed, the small size, and the compile time safety you get from something like gRPC with protocol buffers is, without a doubt, the professional choice. It's built for the job.
At the end of the day, the format you pick is a contract you're making with the future. It's a promise to code that hasn't even been written yet, because data always outlives code. A record you write today might need to be read by a version of your service 5 years from now, and your choice of encoding is what decides whether that future is going to be safe and predictable, or if it's just the ticking time bomb of data corruption. So I'll just leave you with this final thought. Imagine you have an ecosystem of 50 microservices. One team decides to change a field from a string to an integer. If you're using a schema-driven format like protobuf, that change breaks the build. You find out immediately at your desk. If you're using something schemaless like JSON, you find out when your phone starts blowing up at 3 a.m. Which one would you rather have?